Hobby headlines. Today in Hobby headlines, GW hits us with price increases, law enforcement hits the 41st millennium, and Seraphon hit the mortal realms. We have an awesome new animation in Iron Within, and we round up with a discussion of the open day reveals and all the Adepticon hype we can muster. All that to come. First, we have the news that GW is trialing sprue recycling.
My time has come. I don't know why I started saving the sprues, but it was once I started doing it, it became a compulsive behavior. I folded up the edges of the box to make it a little bit bigger. I've got one of those normal British post boxes, small parcels.
I can appreciate the urge to save all the sprues and stuff. I am constantly in a battle against my own messiness, so I end up just shoving it all in a bin bag and that. But if there was a way to recycle them nearby, and there is going to be very soon, then I'm just going to put them by and take them over. Yeah, I get through so many of the buggers. It's about time, and people have been asking for it for long enough.
I'm not super convinced it's going to be effective. I think it's a bit like reusing paper in an office printer. It's one of these things of, a lot of it you can just print on the other side after you've read you print out one side, go to the meeting with the minutes, and then you put the sheet of paper in the recycling bin for printers. But the issue with that is always, what if one side had lewd things written on it? What if somebody's already painted the sprue? What if the sprue's been washed in dish soap because somebody thinks there's going to be release agent on it? That isn't. Release agents aren't used in plastic injection molds. They were used for resin models, and when GW switched to fine cast, they must have been told not to tell anyone to only wash the fine cast. So now we get told to wash everything because that's...
Yeah. Anyway.
No, so I'm struggling a bit to see how the high-impact polystyrene they're using will be recycled. Maybe they're going to grind it up as 10% of the new models, but...
Well, they're not recycling currently into new models. What they're accepting sprues as well as empty paint pots, and apparently you don't even have to clean the residue paint out of there because they can just recycle that as well.
Okay.
But it's currently getting recycled into it's stuff like children's play area stuff. They've mentioned garden planters, stuff like that. Stuff that uses a lower grade of plastic. They say they haven't currently worked out a way to make miniatures from recycled plastic, but they can at least give it to these other, and basically
I mean, they could just wing it and try to make plastic things from it, but there would then be the issue of inspecting everything and rerunning stuff through the molds, and we all know that their big limit is that their machines are running basically 24/7 and they don't have space.
I mean, in a way how this is being done is there's no worded about, we're going to donate this. It seems to be if you bring your sprues back, Games Workshop can sell them onto a recycler and make more profit, which is kind of I would like to hear that kind of cleared up, that there is some more kind of altruistic motive than that. But you can't argue at all this plastic actually getting recycled back into the chain, when otherwise it would be wasted. So
It would be nice to have some of those 50 pence they make cross back into my hands, but I'm hardly gonna argue against doing it until they
Yeah,
do.
I mean that's the other thing. It's not. It wouldn't be like huge amount of money they'd get back
they
from it anyway. But who knows?
they're probably getting some amount of tax good boy pats on the head in some form as well.
Yeah, they'll have worked out some way of making the money.
I mean, I know a lot of people hear that money is changing hands and it's not going to them, and then immediately say, well, I'm not going to do anything if the money doesn't come to me. And I just, guy, go chew on an empty cheese packet. You're speaking so dumb. One other thing somebody noted about this is that if you have a box of sprues from like the model kit you just assembled, don't get in your damn car and drive across town to bring them to the Games Workshop just to bring them back, since there's like a net pollution thing of there. It's
yeah, that's a very good point.
like stick them all in a box, and then the next weekend when you're going by or when you show up for your free mini of the month, bring the sprues in. Hey, there could be a thing. They make it you can get the free mini if you bring an empty sprue or ask real nicely.
Yeah.
Then I'd probably remember to go out and get the free minis this time. If that was
Yeah, this is being trialed soon in a number of Games Workshop stores in the UK, and hopefully like taken wider. Next on the news then, inflation. That mysterious spectre has hit Games Workshop, and to be fair, the price increase this time is under the level of inflation, but it's still just chipping away, getting that little bit more pricey.
I know a lot of people are going to be cranky that the price is going up from what the prices were in the 1980s. I don't care. I think for the amount of money this hobby costs me, I don't care. The limit with Games Workshop stuff for most of us is always finishing the damn models. We've got hundreds of them. I don't think that that minor increases in the prices of kits are a big deal, but I could understand the slippery slope panic of, well, what about the day when it's 10 quid per model in a box, and when the starter sets are this much, and it's like, okay, those would be problems, but I don't think the yearly price increases are anything more than a...
Yeah, I mean, there's every time GW announces it, there's going to be outcry, and like...
This is why 3D printing is killing Games Workshop's profit margins.
Yeah,
No,
I
it's
don't know. Yeah, that argument's bound to be used. But in general, it could have been worse. It was expected. It sucks. Paying more for things sucks, especially when you're not getting paid more for things. But that's a whole other economic argument. Yeah, it happens. It's not too bad. It could be worse, and it probably will be at some point, but who knows?
I want to mention one more thing that I touched on earlier. But there was a painting phase video with Peachy discussing the constant raising prices and people getting angry that Games Workshop isn't lowering prices, and people arguing that like Games Workshop could sell more models if they were cheaper. Think of how many more customers they'd have. And Peachy pointed out that like they're out of space. They can't expand their manufacturing in their current site, and they're apparently, at least somebody is circling the neighbors' offices like vultures, wondering if the wood place is going to burn down or move away or whatever, so they can expand production. So if we're talking their economy, they if they wanted to maximize profit, they would raise I mean, if they wanted to recklessly maximize profit, they would raise and eventually price some people out. They could probably survive with Kingdom Death style prices for their products for some amount of time, just because there's more demand than they can satisfy. Look at how much money scalpers make whenever something comes out. There is more demand than they can satisfy. I'm not saying be grateful to Goody Games Workshop. I'm saying the argument that lowering prices would increase demand doesn't matter because they're maxed out on demand and they're a sensible long-term business. That's why they're not going crazy and trying to maximize short-term returns, but they know what they're doing. But they're operating at capacity and people keep. And the video suggests Peachy was surprised nobody had hired a teenager to set fire to the wood factory next to them.
Anyway, so moving on. Law enforcement. It's been a while since these are some of the things that happened fairly soon after our last episode came out. So we had the Arbitres, and they're looking as Judge Dredd-like as ever.
Yeah, I think we talked about this, and it was one of the sections where I just went off nuts, and so it was clipped from the podcast.
Yeah, these were seen quite a bit ago, but we didn't actually discuss them. And there was these new Necromunda Enforcer robots, which I thought was a good opportunity to bring up all of them.
They look so much like the old school 40K, Epic 40K or Titan Legions Knights that I like them already. They look like Knights. I like them already.
Yes.
They look like my first minis on 25mm basis. I like them already.
They're very bulky, and they do hark back to some of the really chunky Rogue Trader automaton. Automaton?
Okay. I'm a bit of a novice with a lot of the deep lore, so I hadn't realized that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any that are exact updates, but there's the general kind of chunky, beefy robots. And they've got that kind of Fifth Element vibe as well with the high shoulders.
I haven't watched that movie in forever. I kind of hope it holds up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Mila Jovovich divorcing the director holds up, but...
This loudspeaker thing is such a cool touch, actually. It's really captures the Imperial aesthetic. That's the Arbites loudspeaker.
The Vox Vine.
What is it, sorry?
I called it the Vox Vine, like a Voxcaster Vine.
Ah, okay, yeah.
I'm sure it has a real name.
Oh, well, I guess it is a Voxcaster then, just like a floating one. I thought, I have no idea.
And I hadn't seen that the dog could have a little medical bag, and I'm happy he's got a job.
Cute. Moving on, anyway. Let's go on. Seraphon have had some new reveals this week. This month. First off, the pretty. Salamander. That thing is just gorgeous. It's fully redesigned and borrowing not a little from an axolotl. It's got the little fronds and kind of the smile.
I don't remember if it was you or again the Warhammer Weekly guys, but they had something about the patterns on the back, and they couldn't figure out if the heavy metal team had painted two of these with those patterns, or if it was being flipped and photoshopped to look different. But the patterns on the back of the salamander, it's
very good. I'm noticing like it does seem to like. Oh no, it doesn't exactly mirror on each side.
Here's the other thing: the two we see have different head crests.
Yeah.
So I think
point.
they might have done two of those.
Yep, it wouldn't surprise me if they'd done multiple. Yeah, there was also the Saurus Astrolith Bearer, and
I want him
that's a
from
really
Mordheim.
cool reimagining. Like the Astrolith looks so much better now. The only one that I think was slightly amiss was the Skink Starseer. He's good.
I like it,
He
and I like
he
the.
looks like he sat on the toilet looking at his phone.
I don't get why that's a bad thing. I don't get why people keep seeing that, but now that
It's
it's been
cute.
mentioned, it's a meme.
It's cute. Yeah, everyone's mentioned it, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the thing.
Well, once
I like
I
it, to
can't
be
I still
honest.
can't see it, but I'm not going to forget it. I like the
I
little.
like it, to be honest, but I would have preferred to see him sitting cross-legged. There's just something about that.
Oh, like he's meditating on his magic floating throne, and he isn't just a baby slan. He's doing his own thing.
Yeah, yeah. I can see arguments for and against, but it's definitely divided the community a lot more than the other two.
I keep thinking it'd be fun to go through and like pick out heroes from across the range to be Blackstone Fortress characters, and then go back and do the same thing for like Cursed City ones or Mordheim ones. But
That would be
these
very
these
cool.
these these two look like they could be skulking around Mordheim or Cursed City to their own ends.
Right. I'd like to see that. And next up, we've got Iron Within. Like, we haven't talked about many of the stuff many of the content that's been put out on Warhammer Plus. But Iron Within, I super enjoyed. Games Workshop seemed to push it quite heavily.
Okay.
I'm not sure the animation, like who's responsible for it, but um, it was very high quality and reminded me a lot of the 40k ninth edition teaser trailer. Yeah, it was very similar to that, the one with the Necrons and the Ultramarines and the Sisters and Guard and whatever. There was just some stunning shots in this. Drakari looked amazing. Iron Warriors just came off looking so badass, where you can see in this picture here, they've got the shield wall with the breaches and Chaos Breacher Marines, like, just kind of advancing in steps, going, huh, shooting the bolters over the top and then advancing again. It's just such a cool image. I super enjoyed this. I know I'm one of the few people who actually has a Warhammer Plus subscription. That's because I really badly wanted that model, but yeah, I really enjoyed this. It was super satisfying, and it also seems like GW are pushing it forward because it could be as part of their effort to woo Amazon into this deal with some much kind of more developed and polished content than the first wave of Warhammer Plus stuff.
I haven't seen it. I have thoughts on the Amazon thing, but they're just thoughts. But I haven't. I hadn't. I mean, I thought I. Sorry, I haven't seen it. I don't have Warhammer Plus. I haven't tried to find it elsewhere. I just kept seeing blobs for it on YouTube and thought it was another fan animation being done from scratch. So
No, it was one of the Warhammer Plus ones. Yeah,
neat,
absolutely great though. I really enjoyed this one.
neat. Yeah, I'm happy that presumably then whoever's doing it was one of the first round of people they hired and did their thing, and they're like, yeah, I want to do something else. Can I do an Iron Warriors instead of another thing of the what I've already been doing? And I'd be delighted to hear Games Workshop management was like, yeah, sure.
That would not surprise me. Yeah, I also think, like, to be honest, they're putting out this great stuff and they know that so much of the fandom isn't actually getting to experience it because it's all paywalled off. I reckon part of the Amazon deal, like all this stuff's going to go over there eventually.
That'd be cool.
Like somewhere more accessible, because
or even if it's just like syndicated across, that would be cool.
Yeah, I'm starting to think like Warhammer Plus, the whole thing was less of an actual serious attempt to get into the streaming market and more of like a show reel, basically, to shop themselves off to Amazon.
I had sort of assumed it was a bit of a there's money on the table, how hard is it to get thing from them.
I mean, that too.
Like, we already had, there were, I don't know, there were like 3 things going on with Warhammer Plus. There was 3 or 4 things. Firstly, there's obviously the exclusive model, which is probably a redesigned Story Anniversary miniature or something. But and that's fine. They've got sculptors who sculpt things, and as I understand, they sometimes sit on shelves or the designs are thrown away. And then sometimes they just look at them and go, "Wait a minute, that's actually good. Yeah, your first sculpt, yeah, it's now becoming the Mortal Realms magazine exclusive one." Anyway, so I had so along with that, a lot of people are making Patreon money, just doing miniature painting. As well, there's all these people on YouTube doing animations and making animation money, and Games Workshop's also got. They know that people are making YouTube content about battle reports, and they've got this backlog of old magazines they can digitize and sell access to. So someone said, okay, we've got like 5 things that are each 10 or 15% of what we could offer as an online thing. Let's lump them all together, hire people to bring them under our banner, and just do it. And I guess the only bad fallout was they had their agreement saying they updated their policy to say, by the way, copyright law still applies. If you copy our art and use it in monetized content, we will enforce our copyright. And people just started screaming about how this is Games Workshop coming for their models and stealing it. It's like, no, dude, I had this argument with the mutual friend, and she kept going on about how Games Workshop's closed down all the independent content creators on YouTube, and I'm like, okay, name one. And just seemed utterly flabbergasted that other than text-to-speech, who had basically already quit and said they weren't sure what they wanted to do or how this was going to impact them.
Yeah.
And I know lots of people were very upset that text-to-speech quit. I honestly hadn't heard of it before the shutdown thing happened. I went through and watched half a dozen of them, and it was like, oh yeah, that's a bit of an inside joke.
I never really got into it. Didn't Oculus Imperia write on there or something?
Maybe. It seemed like it was a bit of a long-standing inside joke dragged out for podcast length, which is fine. It was done fine. It didn't seem to suffer from any hidden bigotry that half the audience thought was the point. It was fine. It was amusing. I laughed. I did notice that all of his artwork was existing Games Workshop artwork with little mouths added. I'm sure that wasn't the material that their copyright lawyers were talking about going after, but rather they're worried about people copying Iron Within trailers and adding text-to-speech and saying, no, guys, it's totally original. It's fair use. I said the words fair use. Now we're about So overall, if their Warhammer Plus thing was them seeing if they could function on their own or if they should become an Amazon Plus subsidiary like Shudder is, good for you.
Okay.
I did it again. I'm off ranting.
Another patented Peter Ran?